affect you. It does affect someone. And because of that, we are just spreading information and knowledge for the month of February every Friday. So definitely stay tuned. But that's it. And back over to Fred Absolute.
Great. All right. Thank you. Oh, studio fall apart here. All right. So the first guest we've got Jennifer Fairfax. She is an Esquire, an expert on adoption. She's the family formation law firm that has a combined decade of experience in representing clients that grow their families through adoption, surrogacy, with the use of sperm, egg, and embryo donors in the Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia area. The firm also handles private adoptions, the agency's adoptions with step parents adoption, second parent adoption, relative adoptions, adult adoption in all 3 jurisdictions. They also work with clients that are interested in gestational surrogacy and the use of egg, embryo, and sperm donors to complete their families. They support with single parents, married and unmarried couples, both same-sex and opposite-sex transgender couples. So from there, I will turn it over to Jennifer. Again, thank you, and you have the floor.
Great, thank you so much. And I want to say thank you for having me here tonight. And I'm always honored to be able to share information to people who can use it all across the country, locally, or wherever you are. And in that regard, I will say this, although I'm licensed in Maryland, DC, and Virginia, I work with a network of attorneys that support our community across the country. So if somebody is somewhere else and you need somebody who helps with family building, you can access my email. Either we can put it in the chat or give it to you or whatever, but feel free to send me an email. Tell me you're in Seattle, Washington, and you need somebody, and I will find somebody who is close to you and get you connected there. So with having said that, let me say I have been doing adoption work for a couple of decades now. I am married. I've been married for 27 years. I hope I get that right since it's being recorded. My wife and I have a 20-year-old daughter who attends college now. And so we built our family. We had to go through the long process, as I like to say, with regards to confirming both of us as legal parents of our child. What I wanted to talk to you about is how important it is to you to make sure that your parental rights are protected when you have a child, or your child's parental rights, right? So a lot of times, the big misnomer that occurred over the last decade is that when 2 women are married and a child is born during that marriage, they are both placed on the child's birth certificate. And a lot of people thought, okay, that's enough. I'm on my child's birth certificate. That shows that I'm a parent, and therefore I don't need to do anything else. And unfortunately, that's really not enough in this day and time, and particularly with the attacks on the LGBTQI+ community. You really need to have that extra level of support and security with regards to your parental rights, and that's going to be an adoption. A lot of states have us do these adoptions on an expedited or confirmatory basis. That is true right now in Maryland, in that I was one of the authors of the law that allowed for that to go through, so we can do them quicker. DC has a pretty streamlined process, as does, surprisingly, Virginia. So what that looks like is, if you are married or partnered and you have a child together, and you both are placed onto the birth certificate, you then would reach out to somebody like me to file paperwork with the court to do this second parent adoption, as we call it, or step parent or confirmatory. Either way, you're going to file all your paperwork with the local court. Each state has its own process for reviewing and analyzing the adoption. And then sometimes you have a hearing. In DC, there's a hearing. Virginia and Maryland, there's not a hearing. You'll get that final decree of an adoption. And that is going to be a certified court order confirming that both people are parents of that child. And so that then is given full faith and credit all across the country. So that's sort of always my first thing I want to talk about, particularly, when I'm talking to, a group of people who may have that partner, whether you're married or unmarried, whether you're transgender, same sex. I even have for my opposite sex unmarried couples, like you got to make sure that your parentage is secure, especially if you're going to be traveling across the country. So that's one element of what I do. I'm going to walk it back a little bit and talk a little bit about what else we do and why we do the things we do throughout the process. So a lot of women who are building their families are going to be using a donor, a sperm donor 90% of the time, let's say. And in that case, there's two ways that you can get a sperm donor, right? One is what we refer to sort of as a known or an identified donor, somebody that you know who's offering to donate their sperm or semen for you to use to have a child with your partner. In that scenario, you absolutely have to have a written agreement. You have to have something documenting that he is in fact a donor and not going to be a parent. Most states that recognize that donors are not parents want to have something in writing. So the Maryland statute, again, it was one of the ones that I participated in getting passed. A donor is not a parent, but you do need to have something in writing confirming that he has no intent to be a parent. And so that is important, because when I'm looking at protecting somebody's rights, I want to protect it basically pre-conception all the way through birth of the child, right? And so that pre-conception protection is making sure that everything you're doing to build your family, you're doing with secure legal steps. So entering into a known donor agreement, both sides should be represented by counsel so that there's no question that people did not know what they were signing up for, didn't understand their rights or what they were doing. That agreement is signed, you get pregnant, have your child is born, placed on the birth certificate. You then want to do your second parent adoption, and then you're secure. Your parental rights are secure at that point. And so that's one way of the donor, the known donor. The other type of donor that is more prevalent in most cases is an anonymous donor. So this is going to be going to a sperm bank, a cryobank, purchasing sperm and using it in order to achieve a pregnancy and have a child. In that scenario, you don't need a donor agreement because the sperm was donated and all of the rights were severed at the time that the donation was made. So the donor signed documents with the sperm bank or the fertility clinic and released all of their rights. And then you purchase the sperm. And so you don't need that first step of that known donor agreement. I won't go through all of them, but I will say the same would be true if you used an embryo donor. So I definitely have some of my same-sex female clients who are using an embryo donor and in some cases an egg donor. So anytime you're using genetic material that's being donated for the purposes of creating your family, you should at least talk to an attorney to determine whether or not you need something in writing to ensure that everything is protected and secured as you go to each step. Okay. So those are like two of the big things. Now I'm going to talk about some other nuances. I'm just trying to throw out as much out at you guys as I can and all the different pieces. And, you know, if you have questions, you can ask, as they said. But something else that's very common within our community is what we call the ovum swap, where you have two female partners and one of them is going to have their eggs retrieved. Those eggs are going to be fertilized with sperm, and the other partner is going to gestate or carry the baby. All right, so we have a biological parent and we have a birth parent, because, you know, and so in that scenario, it is also recommended that you have some type of agreement between the two partners, making it really, really clear that it is the intent that both of you be the parents of that child. I, unfortunately, and this was years and years ago, was involved in a case where there was no agreement between the two women and they weren't married, and it was a time but without marriage recognition, and became a little bit ugly there. We did ultimately settle it, but it became a little bit ugly because of that very argument. One woman was the birth mother, so under the law, she was the presumed legal parent of those children, were twins, of those children, and her name was on the birth certificate. But the other woman was the biological mother. It was her eggs, but they never entered anything in agreement, and she never got on the birth certificate because the adult relationship broke down before they were able to do an adoption. And so it ended up, we ultimately did do an adoption, but it's a perfect example of why, even if you are in your most romantic, I love everything about you, it is rainbows and unicorns and butterflies and hearts everywhere moment. When you're thinking about having kids, you at least should talk to an attorney just to make sure that you're both doing things that are really, really smart, that are non-emotional, to make sure that you're protecting that child that you're bringing into your life. So those are some of the big things with regards to that I see. But I also want to just talk about, and you know what, I forgot, and I should ask the Pat, how much time do I have? Because I could be talking all night. Am I good? Did you?
Oh, you're good. Yeah.
Okay, you guys can cut me off at any time because adoption is my world and I do it all the time. Okay, So another way in which adoption intersects with our community is what we refer to as a stranger adoption, right? So women who choose not to have a child by giving birth to them, but still want to be parents, you want to adopt a child. And so, there's a process for you to do that as well. You would go through a home study process with an agency and get approved to adopt a child. And then you would go out there and look for an expectant mother who wants to make an adoption plan and place their baby with you. Whether you're single or in a partnered relationship, you can go down this path. Okay, so it doesn't matter. I'm talking just generally within adoption. As long as you get a home study approved, which most people do, unless you are like on quite frankly, unless you're on a sex offender registry, a child abuse registry, or have committed some pretty heinous crimes most recently, you're probably going to get approved for a home study. You need to have a decent income. You don't have to be rich and wealthy. You don't have to be stable and be able to show that you can support a child. Then you can get approved for the home study. It takes about 6 months to go through the process to get approved, but once you're approved, then it's about going out there and finding that expectant parent who wants to make an adoption plan with you. This is where it is really important to have an experienced attorney that you're working with, because you have to navigate a bunch of different legal aspects of the process, right? So the home study is one process. So of course, we want to make sure that you're working with an agency that's LGBTQ+I friendly, and make sure we know what the laws of your jurisdiction are as far as what you can and can't do. And if there's any laws that are anti our community, then we want to be aware of those in advance, and so that we can navigate through those. Once your home study approved, though, you may be working with an agency somewhere else in the country. And there's so many nuances to this. So a lot of the agencies I work with are all friendly to our community, but it's not just that piece. It's the agency, but then you have to get through what's called an interstate step. And then there's, where you're finalizing, and there's all kinds of pieces to that. And so it's just important that you talk to an attorney ahead of time. Sometimes I say it jokingly, but it's not that funny. It's always nice when I get brought into a case midway through, because I'm probably going to make a lot more money because I spend most of my time trying to fix the problems that came to me, as opposed to if the people came to the lawyer at the front end and we avoided the problems at the start. And then it goes much more smoother that way. But currently, every state in the country right now arguably would allow for a same-sex adoption. There are a few states where we know that we would never get that approved. And so for my clients, we're going to finalize their adoptions in Maryland, DC, or Virginia, where currently we have no issues getting adoptions finalized for anybody within our community. Okay. And so I do want people to ask questions, because I want to make sure that I'm sort of able to address any specific areas of concern or interest for any of you. But I'm going to sort of continue to move around a little bit, and going to sort of almost assume as if I'm doing an initial consult with somebody who's coming in for the first time and asking some of these questions. Some things that I think that every potential client should ask lawyers, when you call, is ask them about their experience. Ask them about their experience into an adoption generally. And then depending on the type of adoption that you're looking to do, ask them about the adoption specific to what you're looking for. Have they worked within our community before? How many adoptions have they completed for same-sex couples? And how long have they been doing it? Experience does matter. We don't want to land a case, either with improper pleadings or in front of a court, or a case where it's going to make bad law. So, having an attorney who knows how to navigate things becomes really, really important. So you definitely want to ask them about their experience. If you want to adopt a child through a private or an agency adoption, you want to ask the lawyer those questions. How many have they done? How long have they been doing it? What kinds of issues do they see? The cost, how much does the adoption cost? What's the approximate cost? These things before you actually hire an attorney. We got a call earlier today. My law partner came in and she was sort of telling me that she'd gotten this call. She was talking to this person, and the person was looking obviously for an adoption attorney. And she said, well, have you hired anyone else? And the person said to her, well, I did. I filled out a form, and the person sent me a retainer agreement, and I paid it, and I signed it, but I haven't spoken to the lawyer yet. Okay. That's a hard no. Don't give anybody money, much less an attorney, but anybody money until you've actually spoken to them, unless it is for the minimal purpose of an initial consult, right? So my firm, we get an hour of our time paid in advance to spend an hour, sometimes more, sometimes less, but with somebody to talk with them, to find out what they need, to go through what their situation is, to sort of brainstorm all the different legal things they need to think about, give them advice and guidance. And then only if after that consult do they want to proceed, would we then send out an engagement letter and make sure that it was a mutual understanding. So this holds true with an adoption attorney as well. Is making sure that you're having that initial meeting and finding out all that information before you proceed. Okay. Again, sort of just going all the way back to sort of the beginning. And I looked at the layout of what you guys have coming, and it looks like you're going to have some of this maybe even later this evening. But I am a big proponent of making sure that we also have our estate planning in order. And so I won't spend a lot of time on that, only to say that your adoption attorney likely should be bringing that up with you as well. Because as an adoption attorney, when my clients are thinking about building or growing their families, or they already have a baby and we're doing a second parent adoption, my next question is, do you have estate planning in place? I don't do that, but I want to make sure that they have it in place. Again, the more documents and paperwork that we have to protect our families and our children, the better and the safer it is, right? So that no matter how anybody's coming sort of at you, you've got everything you need, right? From that beginning, you have that donor agreement. Donor's not a parent. You don't need to worry about that. You got a birth certificate. You're both parents. By law, you're the presumptive parents. You've got your final decree of adoption. You have, if you have your estate planning, you have your advance directive, you have your guardian, who you want to watch your kid. Like, you're just making sure that your entire family is protected from the beginning to the end. And that becomes really, really critical. I know you have somebody monitoring the chat, but I have it actually pulled up. So let me just take a quick look. Yeah.
Looking at the I'm sorry. While you're looking at the questions, I just want to, echo. So those know that me and my wife has our daughter Abigail, and Jennifer and her team expedited our adoption, and we found that it was very important because in Maryland we got the birth certificate said mother father, even though the paperwork at the hospital said parent, and we wanted to have, and it wasn't because we didn't think we were going to survive a relationship. It was the fact that as a non-bio mom, I needed to make sure that I had everything in place so that my daughter could reap the benefits of my disability if that ever happened, reap the benefits of, life benefits, if I did pass, while she was still young. So, that's just my personal story, why we felt that it was necessary to take those extra steps and precautions, because like she stated, that birth certificate is presumed, and we don't want to get caught up in the, in the legal side of everything at the end. We rather have all of these things in place in the beginning.
Yeah, and I will say I've done a few cases, and they're always heartbreaking, but we're often called, because we can expedite and we know how the court system works, but where sadly one of the moms is ill and may not be around for much longer, and they never did the adoption, or the birth certificate was incorrect, and it's a race sometimes against time to get that paperwork in order. Again, it's a heartbreaking situation, but we also want to make sure that, again, those death benefits, life insurance, all of those things, that somebody can't along that chain say, wait a minute, you're not a real parent because you didn't do A, B, and C. And so we want to shore that up to make sure for the protection of the kids. So it is really important. I have to say, it's interesting about the question in the chat, because we had gotten this issue come up sometimes too. And particularly we had this issue come up in Virginia. It also happened in New York, where some judges are took the position that you can't you can't adopt your own child. And so if you're already on the birth certificate, we're not going to also do the adoption. So what I would say is a couple things. One, make sure you're talking to an LGBTQI+ friendly attorney who really, really knows what they're doing. Because I mean, we've had this happen and we've gotten the adoptions done. But I'm just one of those people that I just get so tired of it that I go to the legislature and I fix the problem. So the Maryland statute specifically has language that allows for this adoption when you are already on the birth certificate. Like we put it right in there in black and white. This does not prevent people who are already presumed parents under the statute on the birth certificate from obtaining a final decree of adoption. And then it happened in Virginia as well. So the Virginia also changed the statute, and the statute now specifically has that language in there that you can still get this adoption. So that would be my advice to you wherever you live, is to sort of talk to maybe one or two other lawyers to see if somebody has it, because sometimes it's also just a matter of understanding the court system, where you're filing and what legal argument you're making, to see if you can get it done. If you can't do it, ask the lawyer about doing a parentage order instead. Is there an option to get a parentage order, like a declaration of parentage of some sort? We tend to do those in surrogacy for men. Whenever two guys, or a single guy for that matter, opposite sex too, it doesn't matter. But anytime they're doing a surrogacy, we go to court and we get a parentage order. It's a declaration of parentage confirming that they are both parents. And so in some cases, and in rare cases, you could potentially get that as a same-sex female couple too. And so I think it's an argument worth making, is to ask the lawyer in your jurisdiction if you can try for a parentage order. They are given the same, they're given the same legal effect. We just don't do it routinely for same-sex female couples because the adoption is, quote unquote, the gold standard. And people know what an adoption decree is, and it looks like every other adoption decree. And so it's sort of an easier document to have, but you could also get a parentage order, or hopefully.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm the one that asked the question. Because like I've talked to, actually, we've talked to about 3 different lawyers. One of which was an LGBT lawyer. She suggested that we go to a different state and have it done there. But I didn't know how. I didn't understand.
What state you're in?
Tennessee. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Let me, if you, I'll put my email up in the thing before we get off here. If you send me a quick email, then on Monday, I'm just going to reach out to my Tennessee counterparts that I have there and just see what anybody says and what their direction is. The challenge with going somewhere else is in most jurisdictions, you have to have some degree of residency.
Mm-hmm.
In order to be able to file your petition. So for example, in Maryland, we have to file your petition where you've resided for the past 90 days in the state. Right? So if you're not living here, can't do it. Virginia requires you to be a resident. DC, you either have to be a resident or your child will have had to have been born in DC. So it's interesting. We used to have with our Virginia clients, because we couldn't do the step parent pre-marriage recognition, we couldn't do second parent adoptions in Virginia. So when the law changed in DC, and a colleague of mine actually worked on that law, when she got that changed to say that if the baby was born in DC, you could use DC law for the adoption. A whole bunch of Virginia women came over and gave birth in DC, and we did their second parent adoptions under the DC statute because the baby was born in DC. So if your child's already born, again, send me a quick note and I'll see what I can, if I can get you any help or guidance. But these are strategies, the kinds of things like you want to make sure you're talking to somebody who's sort of had to try to navigate some different theories and of ways of sort of trying to accomplish the end goal. I mean, and if it isn't in Tennessee, then, maybe you do have to move. But I want to verify that with one of my colleagues there.
Okay, I'll be emailing you.
So how does it work if this even a thing? So I know like with open adoption, and I know some people have their own rules about that, but have you ever come across an adoption where the person that developed a relationship with the other person, the 2 parents, and they have the child, and then the other person gets in a relationship, but they want to do like a step parent adoption or something? Is that even a thing?
You mean with 3 parents?
Yes.
So I've done a couple of 3-parent adoptions. So it is that, let's call it a thing, but it's a new thing, and it's not being done everywhere. And it does require consent of everybody, and sort of like a clear understanding of what the roles and responsibilities of everybody will be. But so, and we're starting to see them pop up. They sort of, we had some in Washington State. I've done 2 in Maryland. I've done, I know of 1 or 2 that have been done in DC. And so it's a fact pattern similar to what you're describing, where maybe the couple initially has a child together, and maybe their relationship wasn't going to work out. And one of them got into, entered into a new relationship, and really all 3 parents are basically performing parental functions like a step parent, right? So the new partner, let's call her, is really a step parent. But they all agree that they all want to have legal rights and responsibilities. So and again, everybody has to get separate counsel. I mean, I would never say that one attorney should handle that on their own, because you really have different legal rights and obligations that are being sort of shared and transferred there among the parties. I have one right now that we're working on as well, where it's a 3-parent family, and we're doing the 3-parent adoption, and everybody has separate counsel as well. So it can be done, and that also goes for my polymorphous families as well. So sometimes they're coming to me as an intact 3-parent family versus a step-parent scenario. So we'll talk a bit about traveling. So once you complete your adoption and you have your final decree of adoption, you have your birth certificate, it is recommended that when you travel across state lines, that you take that with you. You certainly take your child's birth certificate with you, but with today's current environment, it's also recommended that you take your final decree of adoption with you, at least one of them with you when you travel. The concern is that if you are traveling with your child, and your child has a medical emergency, and you take them to a medical facility in a hostile area, they could arguably not accept the birth certificate as absolute proof of parentage and want to see that court order that establishes both of you as parents. And so again, it is strongly recommended. They shouldn't, right? I can say they shouldn't, right? Heterosexual couples don't have to show anything more than the birth certificate, and they may not be genetic parents to the child. They may have adopted the kid, or they may have used donor egg or donor sperm or donor embryo, but they're not going to get challenged, right? Our community is going to get challenged. And I was talking to a couple of color earlier today. We were talking about it, and I said, and I feel like, for them, I'm like, you guys kind of have like the double whammy, right? I mean, not only are you going to get challenged as a gay couple, but you're also a Black couple. And so, if you're in a hostile community, hostile against gay, they're probably going to be hostile against your race as well. And like, so for you guys, I'm like, I'm going to get you like 6. Like, I want you to make sure that when you try, because they were going to travel. They're like, we need to do this because we travel a lot. We're going to be like all over the place. And I was like, I want to keep one of your original decrees with me so I can FedEx it to you. Just keep in mind that, you do need to travel with these documents. And so obviously you can scan them, keep a set on your electronic device, but you should always plan to have an original certified copy with you. If you travel overseas, then it is a good idea to get what's called an apostille on your final decree. So that is a sort of special government recognition that your final decree was issued by a court of competent jurisdiction, and that is issued in the state where your adoption was done. And so there are some unique rules. So again, I always tell my clients, if you're going to be traveling internationally, even if it's 4 years after I did your adoption, just touch base with me real quick, so that we can sort of dot I's and cross T's and make sure you have what you need if you're going to go out of the country. Because if we need to get the apostille on their decree, then we have to go through a process to get it, and it takes months to get it. So like, don't call me when you're, headed to the airport. Call me back when you're thinking about going, because I need a little time to make sure you have what you need. But that's just something else, just to put that thought in your mind, that if you're going to go international, that you might need additional documents. Okay. All right. Any other questions that anybody has, or anything I can answer or help with? No?
I have someone checking YouTube now just to make sure there's no questions being asked in the chat. 1 second.
And so while they're checking that, I'm just curious, and by the way, is it Frat Absolute? Is that what I call you? I'm looking at your name on the screen. I like
Yes,
that.
that's fine.
So you're doing this series this month. Do you do different things like this each month?
We're looking at that actually. We were just talking earlier today to see what other needs the community have that we can service or provide. And so I think we're going to, if it's not a monthly basis, at the very least, maybe a quarterly basis.
Mhm.
But yes, we are trying to engage with the community, make sure that we have resources and information to share as things come up. Like, you know, perhaps you need it now or someone else that you know might need it. That's what we're here to try to do. So
Mhm.
yes.
That's great. I mean, I want to say that I think the biggest, like I said earlier, misnomer, and also the biggest challenge for the community was this long period of time where members of our community just didn't think they had to do the second parent adoption.
Right.
And, everybody kept saying, no, the birth certificate's enough, the birth certificate's enough. And, as a practitioner, it was hard for me to say, no, you should pay me to do this, even though you have a birth certificate. But as a member of the community and somebody who's experienced some of this, you have no idea how important it is to have that decree. It's not, it is, arguably self-serving because I'm asking you to pay me to do it. I understand that part of it. On the other hand, I also want to make sure that you're protected because you have no idea what you're going to walk into and get challenged. And I've just seen, unfortunately, the ugly side of some of it, whether it's the partners' relationship breaking down, like I said earlier, and suddenly challenging each other's parentage to one of them is terminally ill. And they're trying to make sure we're going to secure death benefits to, an emergency in another state. And, imagine your kid being in an emergency and they're like, well, we're not going to give you access because you don't have proof that you're the kid's parent. I just can't even fathom.
Yeah.
And so that to me, that message just needs to be just sort of rung through and through. Like the adoption needs to be done. I know it's a pain in the butt. I was hoping with marriage recognition, we wouldn't have to do them. Someday we won't have to do them, but right now it's just critical to protect everybody involved to get those done.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So were we able to check to see if there was anyone else on YouTube that had any questions? Or?
No, the moderator said no questions right now.
Okay.
All right. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. All of that information was very helpful. I'm sure we have some people that are going to be reaching out to you. So again, thank you so much again for taking time out and for sharing all the information you've shared with us tonight.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to come back anytime you need some more help. And I will get back to anybody who reaches out. I'm glad to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Joyce, good seeing you.
All right. So we're going to keep this moving. We're going to go right into our next presenter, Siobhan Roman. Are you able to speak at the moment? Siobhan, if you're able to come off mute or type in the chat, if you can speak now. So I'll give her a moment. We're going to see if we can go to our next guest. Dr. Pat Jackson. Are they available?
I'm here.
All right, there you go. All right, the floor is yours. You want me to introduce you really quickly, or do you want to?
Sure, whatever you. I'm sure it's brief, but whatever you got, I'll take it.
Hey, we'll keep it moving. All right. So Pat Jackson is an Esquire. She's a business and attorney. Currently practices at her home state in Rhode Island, where she resides with her wife Sasha and her two gorgeous sons. To her fraternal family, she's known as Frat Endowed. But she'll be educating us on wills, trust funds, medical directives, and etc. So we're looking forward to it. Go ahead, take it away.
Oh yeah. So I appreciate it. As mentioned, I do a lot of business law, but through my ties with the NAACP, I oftentimes provide guidance on wills and trusts. Not the most fun topic. Whereas our previous presenter was talking about some of the beginning life stages. What I do consulting work with sometimes, revolves around end of life stages. So to start with wills, more often than not, we cringe at the term will because it forces us to think about death and end of life decisions, and it's inevitable, but it's not something that we oftentimes think about. And although it's inevitable, it seems to catch us by surprise. And one of the things that we don't plan for is our will, and it leaves us or our family members unprepared for what to do regarding next steps during our time of grieving. So what is a will? It is basically a legal document that coordinates the distribution of your assets after death, and it can appoint, guardians for your minor children. The things that are typically contained within a will include the designation of an executor, that person who is in charge of what will happen with your assets, the beneficiaries, and any guardians for your minor children that you have. I know we oftentimes in our community love to name godparents for our children. And in instances where you untimely pass away, those godparents might be called up to take care of those kids. So make sure before you accept the role as a godparent, you know what you might be getting yourself into, because somebody might be putting you in their will. So there are several ways to go about creating a record of will. Historically, you go into an attorney's office and you have it witnessed there. But with the internet being what it is, you can always go to like a LegalZoom or a Rocket Lawyer. Although you may not see somebody face to face, it's a very effective way to do it. The cost to do this varies from state to state, city to city, municipality to municipality, and it also varies based on how in depth you want the information contained in your will to be. One of the things that I often get questioned about is why wills are challenged from family members or other outside influence. And there are a lot of reasons why wills get challenged. What I see more often than not is somebody got left out who didn't know that they were going to get left out, or somebody thought they were going to get more than what they were going to receive. But some of the legal reasons why they get contested is, one is the mental state. So a person who creates a will has to be of sound mind and body. I often see people challenging wills because they think that I'm gonna call the person the author of the will was, either struggling with dementia, under the influence, felt like they were unjustly influenced to write a will or to change things contained within the will. I also see them being challenged because of fraud. Family members or outside influences think that the wills were created fraudulently, or signed fraudulently. There was an instance where I consulted with someone on, and they didn't believe that their father signed that will. I can't really tell you the outcome of it and all the details that surrounded it, but let's just say the author did not sign it without being under duress. So that will was challenged. And I see that a lot. And like I said, what I see more often than not is somebody who was left out, didn't realize that they were left out, or somebody thought they were going to get a windfall of money and they didn't get a windfall of money. So they challenge it. And what they challenge it for is either forgery or saying that the person who created the will was not of sound mind and body. Wills do have to be witnessed. So even if you do get your will through the Rocket Lawyer or through the LegalZoom, you have to have it signed in the presence of 2 witnesses at least. And those 2 witnesses cannot be benefactors of the will, or else that does give people grounds to challenge your will. What I'll talk about next is medical directives. This is also not a fun topic that people like to talk about. Also, it's reverting back to death. So an advance directive is a document that states what a person's wishes are about medical care in the event that they are unable to speak this for themselves. In the past, when I've consulted, I have cautioned people around making their spouse in charge of their medical directive, not saying that spouses are not the most reliable people. When you're in love, you're in love. When you're happy, but when you're not, you are not. So what I try to advise people is to select somebody that you trust. Trust is a very relative term when it comes to money, finances, and assets. So it's hard to say who will be here for you tomorrow and gone, here for you today and gone tomorrow. But although a spouse is a very easy laurel to rest your head on, like, yes, I'm gonna make my wife my medical, she knows what's best for me, she's gonna do what's best for me. That may not always be the case. So these are instances where you have to sit down and really think how, not saying anybody's bond is not strong, but just evaluate the people that you have in your life, because the person who has your best interest at heart may be a friend. It may be another family member. It may not be your spouse. Also, too, it may not be your family member. It may be your spouse. You may think your mother has your back and she's going to do everything that she's supposed to do for you. But in the end, that might not be the case. And those are some of the tough questions that I have to have with people. And they get offended, rightfully so, completely understand. But you never know what's going to happen when you pass. Another thing that I talk to another thing that I talk to people about is the power of attorney, which acts similar to a medical directive, but a power of attorney, it gives one or more persons the authority to act on your behalf. This might be with regards to closing on the sale of your home or any other particular activity. So it's always important to be as specific as possible. I see a couple of hands up, so I'll take a break and go ahead.
We have a question in the chat as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
So it says, is there a status or limitation for filing a petition of a will?
It depends on where you're at. There is no, the wills are regulated by state to state, like I said, locality to locality, municipality. It's not a federally regulated rule. So I can't give you that information expressly here, typically no, but I can get the information if you want to. I'll put my information in the chat as well. And I can connect with you and give you the information, but I don't want to put a blanket statement and say yes, because I don't know where everybody is located and things may change. And I don't want nobody suing me saying I gave them the wrong information on this Zoom call. So I will get that information and give it to you. X, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Thank you again for taking the time to answer these questions. I appreciate you. So power of attorney, if you have the power of attorney that has the medical thing and all of those things, because my parents is seasoned. Don't y'all tell my mama she's getting old. She's seasoned. And I want to make sure that I am prepared in the event she decides to go to be with the Lord. So power of attorney that I have as far as banking is concerned, do I have to have a second document or whatever for property and medical, or does the one thing power of attorney that I have at the bank, like, is there a document that will cover everything, power of attorney?
No, whatever they want you to be a power of attorney over, they need to specify it in that document there. So that one document can be a blanket catch-all, but everything that the benefactor wants you to have control over needs to be stated out. You can't assume, well, okay, I'll make you power of attorney over my car, so that also means that you're a power of attorney over my house. That doesn't always pan out, and it can be challenged because at the time where you have to step in and execute your power of attorney, in most cases, they're not going to suppose that the author of the document assumed that you would have control over everything. So it make it as specific as possible so that it cannot be called into question.
So I got to write it. We have to create it ourselves, or there's a template, or people.
Oh, there's
write it,
templates. LegalZoom, Rocket
Okay.
Lawyer, all of that fun stuff. They have all
They
these
do all
other
that stuff.
templates
Okay. Cool.
that you can go and get, and you can modify the one that you have, or you can go and get another one created.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We have another question.
Yes, we have another question in the chat.
Okay,
It's does a medical directive supersede a power of attorney?
It's not necessarily superseding anything. They're two separate tracks. So medical directives are for medically necessity for the care. Power of attorney deals more with your finances and your assets. They can be the same document, but like I said, with regards to the last question, you have to be specific and you have to outlay what you want somebody to have control over. Now, if you choose to say, oh, this person has control over everything, you need to outline what does everything mean, because a judge, if this is challenged, is not going to assume what the author of that document meant. All they can go by is the letter of the law, the words that are contained in that document. So you can have a power of attorney of everything, but if you don't list your dog in there, somebody else might get your dog.
Hey, y'all, I had a question. It's Rev. December, I was in a bad truck accident, and I did not have these things in order. Now I'm getting them in order. But the question I had, is there an age limit or who can be a power of attorney or things like that? Is there a certain age you want those people to be? Or, age range, or does it not matter?
I would suggest somebody over the age of at least 18. You teeter into troubled waters when you do deal with minors, because minors, unless they're emancipated, they still have to, their decisions revert back to their parents or their guardians or whomever. So I would go, I advise 18. I cannot tell anyone, what they should or shouldn't do, but I advise an adult. On the lower end of the higher end, seasoned, as I heard thrown out, before they hit dementia age, that's when I would cut it off, because you have to be of sound mind and body, and you have to be of proper judgment.
Yeah, I get it, because
I was euphemism
as a
trying.
As a kid, I was put in that same situation and things got messed up. So I just wanted to make sure, as an adult now, that I make sure I put the proper things in place for myself.
No, and
I
I
don't want
100%
the same thing to
agree.
happen to someone that happened to me.
And so I'll share a personal story. My mother passed away a year and a half, and she was unmarried. She had a boyfriend who lived, Jesus knows my heart, with her for 15 years. And my sister and I had to go. She had no will. She passed from COVID, sudden, nobody knew about the pandemic. So she was unprepared. She was 52 years old. And so my sister and I had to try to figure out, okay, so how do we distribute stuff? And she had, stocks and all this other crap that we had to try to figure out, and things were contested. And yes, no, if the document was in place, it still would have been sad. It still would have sucked, because like I said, dealing with wills and trusts and all this other stuff, you have to do it while you are grieving. You don't get to say, okay, I'm gonna grieve first and then I'm gonna figure out all this other stuff. No, you have to do it right when you're in the moment. So we still would have grieved, but at least we would have had a roadmap to how we would have been able to take care of this. And so essentially that is what you're doing when you create a will or a power of attorney or an advance directive. You're setting a roadmap to help the people who are grieving after you have passed on to be able to get to the finish line so that they can handle all of this financial stuff and then go back to grieving.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Got another hand?
Recited.
I didn't know how to say that, so I wasn't going to try.
She's one of your
Good
newer
evening.
friends.
Okay, I didn't know how to say that. I didn't want to butcher nobody's name.
I appreciate that. Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening. I have a question. So I have a twin brother who is a dependent adult due to autism. And my mom and I have been trying for the last couple of years to get life insurance for him. And we keep getting pushed back for it. What documents can my mom get, or my mom and I, so that we can, get life insurance and any other things that he may need?
Is there a reason why you've been denied life insurance? Is it because pre-existing medical conditions?
No, they're just saying that he has to be the one to, read the information, sign the documents. And of course, obviously, he's not able to do that. He hasn't aged past, I would say, the age of probably about 12. And so mentally, he can't make any decisions, which is why he is a dependent adult. And I tried to explain that to the last two insurance companies that I tried to get through myself. And they basically are telling me that there's nothing that I can do. He has to be the one that reads and understands any of the documents pertaining to him.
So has a medical directive been set up for him? And the reason why is because, we watch the TV shows where people kill people for life insurance, and they're trying to make sure that people don't take out life insurance policies on somebody else without their knowledge. And so is there an advance directive set up for your brother to where your mother or yourself or some other person is named the person to make decisions for him?
I don't want to say 100% because I don't know. I would assume so. I mean, because my mom has, she gets all his benefits. Obviously, she is named as his caretaker, mm-hmm. and she's been that way his whole entire life. We're 49, almost 49 in a month, and so that's why we were a little confused by why we were not able to get life insurance for him. She's always taking care of him. So I will have to ask her if she has some type of a medical directive. I would say no. Okay, but I'm going to ask.
I'll put my contact information in the chat, and you and I can continue to converse about this. It's one thing to be somebody's guardian. It's another to be a power of attorney. It's another thing to be in charge of their finances while they're here. But taking out a life insurance policy on someone, if you are not named as their directive for medical decisions, that's also something different. So I'll put the information in there, and I'll do some more research for you. And then you and I can converse on that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, so what are we on next? So trust. Trust is not something that I talk about a lot. Not a lot of people ask about them, but that doesn't make them any less important. A trust can be used to determine how a person's money should be managed and distributed while they are here and after they are gone. It helps people avoid, it helps the estate avoid taxes and probate, and it can, protect assets from creditors and dictate the terms of inheritance for beneficiaries. There are trusts fall into, and I apologize, whatever questions that you have regarding trust, put them in the chat. I have colleagues who do this all day, every day. This is not my area that I am the most versed in, but any information that you would like further, I can get it for you through another department. And so they fall into 4 categories. There are living or testamentary, and then revocable and irrevocable. So a living trust, it is a document that is written in which an individual's assets are provided as a trust for the individual's use and benefit during their lifetime. So this is while they are alive. On the contrary, testamentary trust, also called a will trust, it specifies how these assets are used after a person passes. I can provide all this information. And like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. Because this information was told to me. This is not something, like I said, that I do every day. But revocable trust, it can be changed or terminated by the trustor during the person's lifetime. And then opposite of that, an irrevocable trust cannot be changed once it is established. One of the things that I found is that we oftentimes equate trust to rich. And that is why most people don't delve too far into it, or don't take a lot of time to try to understand, or at least I can say me, is because I assume that in my everyday capacity that nobody's going to come and ask me about a trust because that's for rich people. And I think we miss a lot with regards to what we can leave and pass on to our family members who survive us, because we don't take the time to actually delve into everything that is available, which brings me to, why life and family planning is so important. As I mentioned at the top, we're always unprepared. It's inevitable, but we're unprepared for it, and it catches us by surprise. And then we're, left saying, what are we going to do? Bringing up the topic about life insurance. It's so often I see people with GoFundMe accounts because the person didn't have life insurance, and so they can't have a proper burial. And so you're asking people for help because you didn't know, or you didn't expect that you were going to have funeral costs, or you don't pay attention to your paycheck to see how much life insurance is coming out of your check to be able to support your burial and your finances once you're gone. These are things so that you don't have to burden your family. There was a person that I consulted with who assumed that her life insurance contribution from her employer was equal to her year's salary, when in fact it wasn't. The company was only paying up to $5,000 for her life insurance that would be paid out, and funerals don't cost $5,000 anymore. So she realized that she had inadequate coverage to be able to take care of some things. Plus she had, outstanding bills and tax liens and all these other things that have to come from somewhere. The IRS never goes away. I tell people, we are here today and gone tomorrow. IRS is forever. That will outlive cockroaches in the apocalypse. So if there is outstanding tax debt, they will come get it from somewhere. And things like these, things like the wills and the trusts and life insurance help alleviate some of that issue that families may get after we have passed on. Like I said, they have to deal with these things while we deal with it while we're grieving and not after the fact. I see a hand still up. I still can't pronounce your name. I don't know if that's from earlier or if you got another.
I think she hasn't put her hand down. You do have a.
Oh, yes, I didn't take my hand down. Sorry.
Okay.
I have a question. I can't type because I'm on the truck.
Okay.
Are trusts mainly for youth? Are those usually set up for youth? Because I've seen, and I've been a product of those for being a youth, and they can't, certain things, so many stipulations with them, but are they just usually for the youth?
That is who typically are the benefactors of a trust. Is not necessarily for the youth. It is for the estate itself. Just more often than not, youth are named as trusts to the estate.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Fred, I got a couple of questions. So
Okay. You were deep in thought.
Yeah. Okay, going back to when my grandmother passed away, she had quite a bit, and her daughter, at the end of her life, basically became the benefactor during her dementia time. That's some issues that the family is having. Well, she then became the trustee on her account as well. And when my grandmother passed, she distributed properties and finances the way she seemed fit.
Mhm.
Well, it was supposed to be distributed equally amongst the living siblings. And then if the siblings were not there, then it would be transferred down to the siblings' children. Well, my mother passed away about 3 weeks after my grandmother.
Mm.
So before her estate was taken care of, my mother passed,
Mhm.
which then would have made me and my sister
Mhm.
the beneficiary. But my aunt basically took over everything, and
Was
we didn't see any of that.
was the distribution, was it written somewhere, or is that something that was assumed?
No, it was originally written, but during the last few months of my grandmother's dementia stage, my aunt changed everything.
So that could have been contested.
That's why I was asking, is there a limitation on, like, a status of limitation? Because this was many moons ago.
Like how many moons? You
Hey,
talking-
how long ago did they die? 2014. Sorry.
Why would you say it like that?
Well, I mean,
That was,
I'm sorry.
that's
When
true.
did my mother
Hey,
and
that's
grandmother pass?
that's my Ellis. That's
When
what
they
she
die.
does.
That's my brown skin.
That's what she does.
That's my brown skin.
Y'all know my heart. Listen.
Okay. So let me look that up and I'll get that information over to you. But yeah, it should have been contested. And that is another reason why wills are contested, is because if there is a new will that changes or alters significantly an old will, people tend to contest those, and rightfully so. You can contest those as well, especially if I know you said your aunt had the wherewithal to change some things once your grandmother had dementia, but if the change was not conducive to her wishes, her meaning your aunt, I mean your grandmother rather than your aunt, then that is the reason why it could have been contested.
And just another little tidbit of information. During that time, it was like a week span. She also got power of attorney over my mother as well, right before my mother passed.
Did your mother sign to power? Did she? Who gave her
Listen,
power of attorney over your
my mother did, but my mother was grieving and in a state where she just didn't know. And before I could get down there, because I was in South Carolina, and this was in Oklahoma. So before I got down there, she had already signed over her power of attorney to my aunt. And then by the time I did get there, she had passed.
So that could have been contested as well. Like I had mentioned before, her signing over a power of attorney was under duress. You could have contested that it was signed under duress. Duress in this instance meaning grief. She was not in her right mind. She was not of sound mind to make these decisions. So it could have been contested. So let me look at that as well. And you said this was in Oklahoma?
Yeah, Muskogee, Oklahoma. Oh, my sister just said something too. I don't know what she said though. She said what?
She signed the paper under false pretenses, thinking that she was signing it to do not resuscitate it.
She said
she did it while I was not there.
She said she signed my mother thought it was a do not resuscitate letter.
So that's fraud.
Yeah. Well, everything my aunt does is fraudulent, but
I didn't want to assume anything.
No, it's
you know,
it's white privilege.
Bye.
It's assumption. That
okay. I didn't want to assume.
Mm-hmm.
But they really want that.
Yeah, they're definitely millionaires because they did it with my grandfather as well.
I'm writing. I'm writing this down.
Yeah, because
That's
my
my brown
grandfather,
skin.
my
That's my
grandfather
brown
owned
skin.
a construction company in Las Vegas in California, and he only had 2 children, which was my aunt and my mother. When he passed, they all she got all of his stuff.
Okay. Let me put this in the chat right now because you guys okay.
Sound like prison time to me, but
Shay,
hey.
you know what? During the time, I just didn't care. That's the whole thing. I didn't at that time. My grandmother had passed and my mom had passed. I was just over it. But at this time, I'm grown, and I feel like I should just aggravate her spirit with suing her from somehow. Because I have the finances.
feel
and I
That's
could.
my brown skin. That's my brown skin.
I think it's important for us to consider everybody getting their information in place. Not that the fact that, you know, like you said, it's a black fear that if we don't think about it, it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But that GoFundMe, participate to a GoFundMe unless it's for, and I don't even want to participate even then. So you have to prepare yourself, and you don't want to be caught, because a lot of us still don't have things in place, and we know good and well we don't dress the way our mamas or family see us. So they're gonna have us in a nice, pretty sequence church suit and our casket. But you know
All
you
white,
want to be
baby.
buried in wine, black, and
Oh,
pearl.
yes.
So
All
you
white,
need to make
baby.
sure, exactly. You got to make sure those
With
things in place,
stockings.
like don't, and just like Dr. Jackson Fred and Dow stated, is that, you know, even though my wife is my medical director to make those decisions, I don't trust her emotionally at that moment. I'm being honest with you. So I have stipulations in there that's going to help her make the best decision.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know that she's going to make a decision, but I know that she's going to be emotionally distraught. I would be too. But so, for example, I put a line in there: don't resuscitate me if there's no I can't remember the exact statement, but if I'm gonna be a vegetable, let
Quality
me
of
die.
life.
Yeah, quality of life. Let me
Quality of
go.
life.
Don't have me around here wiping me and washing me for the rest of my life just because you don't want me to want me here. That doesn't work for me. And so you have to be specific. When my mom passed away, we had nothing but a power of attorney. But in the state of Florida, they said, well, power of attorney has no preference over anything. It became next of kin's decision, and that left me having to make decisions over the phone. So you have to have these things in place, because I'm gonna let you know what kind of song I want. I'm having a wardrobe change. I want everything in my statement so nothing is missed.
Goodbye.
Wait, wardrobe change?
Yes, because for the wake, I'm gonna be dressed one way, and at my funeral, I'm gonna be dressed another.
Ain't nobody changing you.
I
in the
am
middle of
not
the
changing
funeral.
I'm
you.
paying for it. I'm paying to be changed. I got 2 caskets picked out because I don't want y'all to see the same one when it's time to go.
Only
Wardrobe
debonair.
change?
Only debonair.
I better have my outfit changed. But you have to be specific. You have to be specific, because if not, you're going to be caught at the end. And when we had that conversation about life insurance, just like Fred and Dow said, if inadequate is just as bad as not having none at all. Because you know, back then, I know when I lived with my great grandmother, the insurance man used to come around the house and used to pick that check up. And she had a little 5,000, and that was big then. It takes a lot now. Plus, keep in mind, we talked about term, we talked about whole life, we talked about all of those. Get your affairs in order, because if you want ALZ to support you in your eulogy, we ain't coming to no shad business. Y'all got to get your stuff together.
Oh man.
I'm just going to echo that, and I'm going to say I thought that I was prepared, but after these last couple, well, I mean, I've already had some life insurance or a couple policies, but Dr. Jackson, you've given myself for sure a lot of information that I did not necessarily know was of importance or as important. So I thank you for sharing and spending time with us tonight.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? Do we have any in the chat room?
It's not a question, but it's a comment real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Something to make sure you know where these documents are. when our parents, grandparents, siblings, loved ones pass away, before we get to that point, or tell them where you leave it. You know, everybody got a spot, well, not everybody, but hopefully everybody has a spot where your important documents are. Because when my grandmother passed, she had a home, and then when she got sick, she moved in with my mother. So no one found her documents. Well, my mom didn't find them. So we stuck trying to, you know, call the, luckily they were I'm from a small town, so all you gotta do is call the insurance man. He still comes to the house with his little paper and stuff. However, just make sure you have those documents somewhere that they are within reach, because that too can delay other stuff. And then, you know, they want their money right then. So make sure you know where these documents are.
And make sure the documents are only where the people that you want to know where they're at.
Yes, that part.
They know.
And not just sitting on the dresser where your cousins come by and then they
under
trying to
the
figure out how
mattress.
to change it, or, you know, stuff like that. Make sure the correct people, that is a good note. Make sure the correct people or person or whomever knows where they are, and make sure they're up to date. You know, this could, like, I thought for me, my grandmother had us in a policy as kids. Literally, I'm 30, I'll be 39 next week. And as long as I can remember, Mr. Sam used to come to my grandmother's house. She signed her paper. He gone on. He'd be back in 2 weeks, or I think he came every 2 weeks, whatever case may be, until I got to be almost grown. And then, you know, he stopped coming by. So because he became digital. So, but she didn't handle the digital part. My mom did. But when it came time to, you know, that time she was nearing, Lord rest her soul, she got to 93 years, but Mr. Sam wasn't in the area anymore. Mr. Sam had passed, and now somebody else was over it. So I'm like, well, who do we reach out to? I didn't know, because I don't live there anymore. So it was just like a hurry up and figure out who to contact type thing, and to know where it was. Because my grandma was one of them people that she hid her money under the bed mattress. She did. She hid her papers in a little can in a certain room. So we knew where the stuff was, but it's just a matter of hurry up trying to get it. And during that time, you kind of, especially if you out of town, you got to have people in place that you can say, hey, can you go to my mama's house? Can you go to my grandma's house? This, that, another. Because it happens really, really quick. I'm just throwing a tidbit from personal experience.
No, thank you. And I would just tag along with that. Let people know how many policies you have, and that you do have a will, if you have a trust, or any of these other documents that we've been talking about tonight. Let people know what you have so that they know what to be looking for. I know we have one other question. It looks like Lyrical. Can you tell us what type of insurance helps best, term or whole? So do you have any recommendations? I know we talked about it last week, but we'll let you respond.
I can't say which one is best. To whole life insurance gives you more, as a cash value to it. Rather, as opposed to life insurance, you may, because term life insurance can cost like up to 15 times, whole life can cost up to 15 times more than term life insurance, and you have the same death benefit. I can't say what's better. It depends on what you want, or what you deem that you need, and also what you can afford, regarding the premiums. Whole life insurance can be, rather expensive. So it's something to look into. What do you feel that you need? Like I said, it can cost a whole lot more than you have the same death benefit. So it's just, what do you need at the time? And what do you project that you will need?
We'll make sure we put the flyers in the contact information, but the flyers from the previous meeting in the ALZ group, so that if you want to reach out about life insurance or taxes and things like that, for the information that we've been gathering, it'll be in our group so we can all participate from it.
Perfect. All right, so if there's nothing else for Dr. Jackson, we're going to move to our next presenter tonight, if that's okay. Is there anyone else who raise a hand or anything in the chat? All right, so again, thank you so much for all of that information. We will certainly be in touch. if we have questions and concerns regarding the information that you provided tonight. Siobhan, are you able to talk now? We'll give her a moment to come off mute. There you go.
Yes. Hello. How are you? I'm here.
All right. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and let us know what services you provide and how we can get in touch with you.
Oh, so I am just listening. My session is on the 17th.
I thought
perfect.
that. That's my fault. I am so sorry.
But I'm ready if I need to.
I apologize, Siobhan.
No problem. I just wanted to come on and listen and participate and support the session.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for that. All right. So does anyone else have any other questions? I know Jennifer left her email information in the chat room, so please take note of that. And Dr. Jackson also left her information in the chat as well. I think it was an email address. If you guys have social media contacts that you would like for us to stay connected with you, then please, by all means, leave that in the chat as well.
My social media is not fun. It's just a bunch of pictures of my kids, but I'll put it in there anyway.
We shoot you some likes. Stay on TikTok. We'll do that too. All right. So if no one else has anything else, I'll leave it open, for questions, anything to come. Debonair, do you have anything?
Well, I am so excited. This was some great information, and I can't stress enough of what it is to be prepared. We don't like those hard conversations, but we have to be prepared. And our upcoming conversations is going to help us become prepared, because just like Dr. Jackson mentioned, we always thought trust was for the rich people, and people like Siobhan, when she comes on the 17th, and other individuals we have, they're going to teach us how to make it our business, not just rich people business, our business, to get things set in place, for those who own houses and things like that, how to get those situated and in place, so that when we do pass away, because it is a guarantee that we will, when we do pass away, those that we are, setting things up for our future, such as our children or grandchildren, they can benefit just like our friends from the Mount of Caucasus benefit as they do their children, because we don't want them to have to pay capital gains, just as our, we should be able to benefit from those things too. We just didn't know how, or had that fear or misunderstanding of where we, we could not engage in it. And that's not true. And especially like even going back with the life insurance things, making sure those in place, understanding, like we got a tidbit of it, what we're doing to getting that cash value, and what we're not, and getting term, because term will run out. That's why it's called term. It's going to run out. Yeah, you can get it for $25 a month now, but then in 20 years, who says you're going to be standing upright? Your back might be over. We don't know. And then you have to renew it again to get more. And it's going to be more costly. Even about our children, making sure us as LGBTQIA LMNOP community is well supported when it comes down, especially us as non-bio moms. We have to have our say so legally. I know, you just have to be prepared. And upcoming, we have Siobhan Roman will be back. I can't wait for you to hear what she has to offer in her financial advocacy for women, because we still are, some of us. And so we also have next week, Senator Antonio Hayes has confirmed for next week. We get in all of our principles in this political activism. all of our community volunteers, all of them. Get your points while you can. We have confirmed One United Bank. I'm not going to tell you on what day, but I want y'all to be present for every day. But One United Bank, the nation's largest Black-owned bank, has agreed to support us in this effort. We have more life insurance individuals coming. We have some entrepreneurships. Next week is really packed, so expect to spend some more time. We got grant writing. We even have a group that's coming in to talk to us about HR practices and making sure that we know what we need to be supported when dealing with HR and what equal pay and those conversations about. I'm telling you, we have so much. We have funding. We have an individual that's going to come and talk about funding and things like that. We are here to push as much information and knowledge to you. So invite, share the details, make sure that you're inviting people. This is not just for LGBT or ALZ. This is for everybody, because at the end of the day, this is Black History Month, but we are creating Black history every day. I am so proud to be Black. And this is the reason why, is because just because I am. I just am. And you should be too. And we should not be so focused on the history that has passed, but creating our own Black excellence and Black success. And that is what we're here to do. So I appreciate everyone that came aboard and assisted with us. Thank you so much. But I'm gonna quit talking and turn it back over to Fred Absolute.
No, I appreciate you. I just want to say that, again, thank you, all the Regal women of Alpha Lambda Zeta Fraternity Incorporated. This series is called Changing Our Living by Changing Our Mental. So we appreciate you all support. And as she said, just continue to share the flyer on the information for the remainder of the month on all your social media platforms. Thank you so much again. And other than that, we will see you all next Friday. All right. Thank you so much.
Great job, y'all.
Thanks.
It's about the 7.
Good
The
stuff.
mountain of coffee.
Thank
I gotta figure
you.
that one.
You
Only
first
my
one, too many
evidence.
hands.
I feel like I'm a part of the Mountain of Caucus.
Oh, but you
Yeah,
still my brown skin.
you are until
You are.
Yeah, half of it.
You
You-
on the
are.
15th. You
Yeah.
can switch.
You can split it.
I'm on the poor Black side of it though.
It's okay for the Mountain Caucus. We support you.
Thank you.
You can join One United Bank too.
Okay, good deal. Mhm.
Just a FYI, everybody, we about to be a grandmother again for time number 5 in like a few minutes.
Come on,
Thank you for the hair.
congratulations.
All right, so it looks like, thank you.
Okay,
Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, you guys, take care.
Yeah, have a great night. Love y'all.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Love y'all.
I'm really sorry this is all happening to you. I'm gonna be fine. Yes, you are. Can you pick up your hands real quick? Yes, please.